Welcome to Shred the Veil, everyone. I'm Daniel here with my brother Derek, and today we have a guest, Neil Gaur, with us, and we're going to kind of learn a little bit about him and see where this discussion takes us. So, Neil Gaur, if you haven't heard of him, he's the founder of Portal to Ascension. It's a conscious event production company. It started in 2008. It hosts a wide range of presenters on lots of different topics like the origins of humanity, the existence of extraterrestrials, exposing hidden truths, and exploring the nature of reality. He travels the world facilitating gatherings and filming documentaries intended to empower the individual to reclaim their sovereignty. I love that. And awaken their full potential. Neil also operates an online platform that creates and facilitates about 110 conferences and workshops a year. Wow. At this point, Portal to Ascension has worked with over 1,500 researchers, spiritualists, scientists, conscious explorers, and more. Neil's philosopher, historian, researcher, and spoken word artist. He presents his research on the ancient wisdom and future science of sound, vibration, and frequency, as well as in-depth explorations into ancient civilizations, archaeological discoveries, space anomalies, shedding light on hidden esoteric wisdom, and exploring ways in which we can create unity and peace on Earth. That is awesome. So welcome to the show, Neil. We're excited to have you here.
Thank you, guys. Good to be here with you, Daniel, Derek.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So you established this in 2008. So you've been at it for a while.
It's been a long
Wow.
time, man.
Yeah. I guess I'd like to start with just kind of what got you into this and what led you to this journey of
Yes.
exposing the truths and kind of are drawn to the similar topics and similar themes with our background. But yeah, I'm always curious to see how other people got started into it.
Yeah. So I will start with like my upbringing. I was raised Hindu, right? So, but being raised Hindu, living in England, I was there until I was 12 years old, moved to California. I pretty much just did what I was told. I kind of just followed the cultural narrative, and I was like a little Indian kid singing like hymns in like temple, and looking back at it, I don't even know. It was completely empty. I was just doing it because it was expected of me, and I was just doing it because there was community there. And when it came to what God is there a higher power? Am I connected to Him? That wasn't even a part of my world, even though it was a part of my parents, especially my mother's. So as I grew up in England and then moved here, I celebrated conventional like Christian holidays too. We did things on Easter. We didn't celebrate religiously, but Christmas time was a huge thing for me as well. And I believed in Jesus. My parents told me about him. I watched King of Kings, the movie on Jesus, and Moses, and all that stuff. Right. So I had all this information that was much more than the religion I was in. And when I started having the faculties to even like kind of like on that, I started realizing that there were so many similarities in all these stories.
Mhm.
And I was wondering why people so often talk about the differences between, these religions when you can just track back just a little bit, even within Hinduism and Christianity, for example, the story of Krishna, right? Like Krishna, there's a reason why Christ and Chris is the same. It's not just a coincidence, Like he was born to a virgin mother. His father was a carpenter. He was known as the savior. He died with a spear in his side, where Jesus died with an arrow in the side. Jesus died on the cross with a spear in his side. And I was like, wait a second, how can these pagan or polytheistic religions be connected to monotheism? I've been told that they both are independent of each other, looking for the root of all religion. When I used to do podcasts, for like over a decade, I would kind of like, I guess for lack of a better term, like I would diss my religion that I was raised in, Hinduism. And I would call myself an atheist Hindu. That's what I said a lot. And then I realized that I was, the benefit of me being raised Hindu, lots of benefits I realized now, but one of them was I was never told it was the only way.
Nice.
In so many Abrahamic religions and beyond, they always say this is the only way to God. And because that wasn't the case, I was left to be able to wonder what else is out there.
Yeah.
So as I started learning about the connections in 2000, when I was 17 years old, I started going on a unconscious search really for the root of all religion. And pretty soon, within a couple of years, it became even more conscious. And I went back further and further into text until I found the Sumerian scriptures, the Sumerian tablets of creation, and within that, the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
And the Epic of Gilgamesh made me realize, oh, the Noah story is connected to this. Wait a second, how can the Noah story from the Abrahamic traditions be connected to a pagan religion? And this pagan religion is older, so the stories came from there. But
Yeah.
instead of saying God, they're saying star beings, and then they're telling you where and what planet these star beings are from.
Right.
With metaphors for advanced quantum physics in the scriptures, like space travel, things like that, DNA manipulation.
Hmm.
So that was 2001, 2002, and it started my deep dive journey. I found Jordan Maxwell, Nassim Haramein, William Henry, all at the same time in 2001, and
Nice.
that was really, if you know these guys, like you know
Yeah.
that it's a really full circle picture right there of all that stuff.
Well, yeah.
And so for 6 years, rabbit hole dive took me to conspiracies because I started following the bloodlines, right? Because of
Yeah.
Jordan Maxwell occult information, and I thought, 2006, that we're completely screwed. The elite are out there, secret societies are going to take us out, depopulate us. That's where I went with it. And then I had a revelation in 2008, and not to speak too much about what actually happened, but basically the result of that was me realizing that the missing link in everything I was learning was love, and that all the darkness is working for the light, and all these experiences happen so that we can remember who we truly are. That was the year I started Portal to Ascension.
Wow. That's awesome. That is so cool. And a lot of people you named, a lot of the timing too is similar as far as what I experienced, and the
Yeah,
whole Sumerian, going through the Sumerian tablets, the text,
yeah.
the creation story, you just see so much connection there. Zachariah Sitchin, my grandfather said, if you're going to read any book, start with this book, The 12th Planet. And so
Oh
that
wow.
going, and that's how I started my journey. But like you hit all those, like Nassim Harriman was a huge part of looking at the physics side of it and math.
Yep.
So that's awesome that you tied all that together and it finally got you to Portal to Ascension. But that's seems like such a huge task to take on. How did you manage to jump right in? I mean, you had the revelation, and feel free to explain more of that if you want. But what had gave you the power, like the willpower and the motivation,
Mm.
everything to do that in 2008 and to take?
Yeah. Well, so in 2006 is when it started the process of Portal to Ascension. And I created a Facebook group called 2012 Consciousness, Mind, Evolution, and Presence, right? And I've been in this world for 6 years. I had like, Facebook. I've been kicked off Facebook now, but back then, like I had over 5,000 friends on Facebook. You can only have 5,000, right?
Mhm.
And um, and just because I've been following and connecting with so many people into this awareness, and most of these 5,000 people I actually interacted with because I was sharing information. They're sharing with me all over the world, right? And so I decided in 2006 to create that Facebook group.
Mhm.
So people started joining from all over the place, and I started creating chapters. I created a California chapter, New York chapter, Canada chapter, just different ones to see if I can um, have localized groups start out. As time progressed over those 2 years, 2006 to 8, I started having realizations like that was a huge, huge shift in a lot of awareness for me. For example, my group was called 2012 Consciousness, Mind, Evolution, and Presence. Come 6 months later, I realized, oh, it's not about the mind, right? It's about a greater truth beyond the mind. So I took out the word mind, right? And then it was 2007, I started having this whole revelation about time. It's not
Mhm.
about time. It's not
Yeah.
about 2012 being the date. So I took
Mm.
out 2012 consciousness,
Yeah.
evolution, and presence. and
Mm.
and
Yeah.
then ultimately in 2008, 3 or 4 times I changed the name in 2 years.
Mhm.
2008, I had a dream, and the dream was to change the name to Portal to Ascension. And I'd already had a fan page at that point, I had multiple Facebook groups. So I just submitted my request to Facebook,
Mm.
shifted the name, and it was in alignment with, like, just looking back at it, it was kind of like divine prophecy because those 2 years, so many changes had happened in my life. And then 2008, when I stopped judging the darkness, Like
Mm.
that was it. When I stopped judging the darkness and I had gratitude for the darkness for giving my experience.
Yeah.
And I also had a realization that many people that embody the evil in this world, like that's such a loose term to use.
Yeah.
Those individuals might actually be higher advanced souls to experience that, to give us the other experience on this stage of life, right?
Right. Right.
So 2008, summer of 2008, the same year I got fired as a financial analyst, right?
Mm.
And because the market crashed, summer
Yeah.
2008, and
Right.
I made a trade. I made a trade that went bad. My boss fired me,
Mm.
and then I learned how to do web design. You asked like how it happened. So when
Yeah.
I got fired in summer 2008, August 2008, I learned in 3 months how to do web design, HTML code, and then I created my Portal to Ascension website.
Nice.
And then I had my 1 month later, I did my first event, which was called Hypno Creativity, where my friend synthesized binaural beats. He made them from scratch
Mm.
while he did hypnosis on people to help them release their creative blocks so that they could tap into, their creative expression. And that was the first Portal to Ascension event.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. That is cool.
hmm
Good deal.
Nice. And so Portal to Ascension started with, the online presence and the various events, and have you continued those events throughout the years, like annual basis, or how do you
Yeah.
do that?
Well, so okay, the way the events went down is like 2008. I did this hypno creativity, right? And then pretty soon after that, I met my friend Mark Diebler. He goes by Dr. Dream, and he had a Rife frequency machine. Are you familiar with Rife?
I
Yeah.
have
And
one too. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so and he contacted this center, I guess that is like the organization behind it, and requested specific frequencies for self-love, forgiveness, and there was a third one. And those are frequencies that aren't in the book, right? They had specific ones, they're like exclusive. So he got these frequencies, and I became friends with him. I was now working as a web designer in 2009. And then basically I quit my job. I quit my job like 4 or 5 times from this, like just to do this full time. I kept jumping in the fire. And we went on the road. We left. So in 2009, I'd already done like a few sound healing events. And then 2009 to 2010, we jumped in the car. I moved in with him and my other friend who was working with me at the time. And we started doing what was called unconditional love galactivation, 3-hour experiences. We started in Orange County, California, and we went to Vancouver, went to Victoria Island, and all the way back down to San Diego.
Wow.
When we left, we'd only had 3 events scheduled, and then we were traveling for 6 weeks, and we did 2 events every week for 6 weeks up and down the coast. And this was me calling yoga studios with my friend who's working with me, calling metaphysical places, holistic centers, getting the venue booked, coming up with the percentage split we're going to do, calling local spiritual community, because we didn't have any list. We didn't know anybody in these towns, right? And completely going with trust to see, can we get a venue? Can we pull people out? We had everything from one person to 200 people,
Oh,
because people went 100% behind it. And
yeah.
so 2009, 2010, I got like a lifetime's worth of production experience, because like I had to figure everything out from scratch,
Oh,
beginning to
yeah.
end. Even how to get people out in a small town in Netherlands, San Luis Obispo, for example. We went to small towns,
Yeah.
and so and we also didn't have enough money to move on unless we got paid for one before. We had no hotel scheduled. We had to hope to see if someone was going to love our event enough to let us stay at their place. That's how,
Wow.
yeah. So that happened until 2010, end of 2010. But then in 2010, I was in Vancouver at the Unity Church doing the first Portal to Ascension conference.
Hmm.
Because put on a conference with some of the speakers that were meeting on the road, and I contacted my friend Brad Johnson, who channels Adronis from Sirius.
Mm.
I'd been following him since 2008. So he's never done a live event before. So I said, hey, you're in Vancouver Island. We're in Vancouver. Why don't you come over and let's put a conference on over there, and we'll have 2 other speakers. So he came over, and after the event was done, we had this moment where we like looked at each other and we're like, yo, this is like what we're supposed to do. And then the tour changed for the next year and a half, 2 years, to Extraterrestrial Channeling Tour. So I continued touring, doing the same up and down from 2009 2012, and instead now we started doing a sound healing opening with a Q&A with an extraterrestrial from Sirius. That was the next thing. And so now I did over 400 events in those 2 years, right? Because we would do them at people's houses. We would do it at nighttime for dinner. So I sat in like hundreds of hours of Q&As with ETs, and every single question that I could ever want to ask about anything, galactic history, all the stuff, I got an opportunity to ask, right? Wow. So learning a lot about it. So that was kind of the beginning of it all. You know, just to fast forward here, kind of close this part up. And 2012 then came about. And after all this events that we've been creating, I decided to create our first live in-person conference. So it was in Irvine, California. It was called Cosmic Reunion 2012, 1 month before the end of the world. Okay. And so that we had Bashar, I don't know if you know Bashar, but he was the headliner for that event, right?
Wow.
And then I did it again in March of 2013. And March of 2013 didn't do well financially, had to leave my house. I was on the road again, houseless, as they say. And then I continued doing small events here and there until 2016, where I realized that traveling the world, doing these events, paying for venues, flying speakers out, that's a lot of money, you know, and I sometimes it didn't work out, and I couldn't afford to like live. Yeah. So I moved everything online in 2016 and then created the online platform. Awesome. For a few years, I did only online events. And then when that was actually making enough income, I started doing live events again. Now we're here today.
Wow.
That's absolutely amazing. Yeah. Wow. You're like a pioneer in this field for sure. That's a tremendous story. Wow.
Yeah. We owe you a lot of just gratitude, and just like a lot of love goes your way for putting those communities together that people have been looking for and searching for. Yeah. That's amazing. So cool.
Yeah, so, I know Portal to Ascension has been a part of my journey, awakening and learning stuff, and further developing in my path, Yeah.
For sure. I love all the great names that I've seen a lot more recently, just the online stuff you've been doing, and you've seen it put out so many. I mean, it seems almost like every month or so. Something else, and so love it. I love that Laura's tied to it. Laura Eisenhower's was a big part of getting us into just getting into our own platforms and stuff like that. But I met Alan Steinfeld just recently at this the Stairway to the Stars in Vegas. He's really, really nice guy, and I got his book, and I was really super interested that he was talking about stuff like Rudolf Steiner, which I've been following, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So he has a whole great take on things. Who else? I can't say his name. It's the Agni.
Agni.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's great.
He's good. And then I was gonna say I love watching is Grant Cameron. Also, he has such great information.
I love Grant. Yeah, I used to do a lot of events with Grant. Lately, he's not doing as much, but I used to have him at all my live events. And then the whole WikiLeaks thing that was going down, Grant, when all the disclosures happening, you guys probably are aware of those ones with Tom DeLonge and everything. We would do broadcasts every single time that would happen, and just like do updates with people. What I've had the opportunity to do with Portal to Ascension, and I didn't realize this because I was just creating events, like on some level, like I'm an autopilot for this information. Like I know that I'm here destined to do this.
Right.
And it just takes over and just does it through me, And then, but what I realized just like 3 years ago was that anything that I'm curious about, I just put an event on. I created an event. So some people think because I'm creating an event on it. And actually, I'm not. I'm creating an event so I can become an expert on it. Like I just did a 2-day conference on Atlantis, 20 hours, 10 hours a day, right? Wow.
Yeah.
And it's the most fully encompassing deep dive on every level, from past life regressions to stories and myths of ancient times, to archaeological discoveries, to spiritual meditations connecting to Atlantis. So that's what we got to do with Portal to Ascension. Sometimes I hear topics like someone will be speaking in a documentary on Gaia TV or something, they'll mention one thing for 5 minutes, right?
Right.
Or just a few minutes. I'll do like an 8-hour conference on that one 5-minute topic.
Right.
And we'll go, like, for example, I did one of my favorite presentations I've ever put together is on Pythagoras, on his life. It's called The Truth, Life, and Times of Pythagoras. It's a 3-hour presentation on Pythagoras.
I
And
gotta see that.
oh,
Wow.
dude, it's so good. And the thing is that you hear Pythagoras all the time within this community, right?
Right.
So I was just like, yo, like, is there any truth to all this stuff? Let's look at not only his life and what he did, but let's look at the time in Greece at that moment and kind of take a historical narrative on that. So those are the kind of things we get to explore Portal to Ascension. And now
Wow.
next year, I just hired a team on. So next year, we're becoming a little more intentional. We're creating new types of experiences for people. And we have a lot of things that we're going to grow into. We just did our first tours to Egypt. We took 2 groups of people to Egypt. And then next year, we're doing a cruise. We're taking a 7-day cruise through Honduras, Belize, and the Yucatan.
Wow.
And it's called Portal to Ascension at Sea, the Galactic Origins Cruise. So it's going to be all about ET connection stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. When is that going to be? Okay.
December 14th to 21st. So it ends right on the solstice. It's exactly.
The end of next year. And
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
My intention is with Portal to Ascension, and my ambition is to be creating every type of production there is in the world for consciousness.
Yeah.
You know, including music, festivals, all those things that are in the work as well.
Right. Right. And I was going to say this at some point, but you do the spoken word too.
Yeah.
If you have anything you want to share, maybe at the end, that would be awesome. Anything else?
Yeah, I'd love to.
But I wanted to tie back because while you're talking about all this, and it goes back to like how we go on our own search for answers, and a lot of things you were mentioning too. I mean, when you're talking about finding the history of Atlantis, finding the history of things that you're not going to find in any textbook. It's not, and there's more and more, I think, evidence coming out now that maybe is tangible, but for the most part, it's all goes back to, what people might recall from past life or channeled information, knowing that they were from that time, or other star beings from that era, that time, that have the history, that they just know it, and it becomes just inherent. So as I was younger, I was always very hesitant to like go towards that information. I think a lot of people are that are new to this type of information, knowing, okay, ETs are real, UFOs are real. Now what do we do? Like, where do we go to look and find information? And I think you already have like a whole history, a library that people will probably use later. I mean, honestly, to go back and find the truth and the true history of what we know. But I think you have to be willing to open up your mind to that type of getting that type of information where it's being
different ways. Yeah, exactly. So when I did that channeling tour, and then I had a channel at my event in 2012, and then 2013, 2014, I phased out of any type of channeling on my events, right? And for a good, let's see, 2014, a good 6-7 years, I didn't have any channelers. Or people connecting spiritually through meditation to it. We had meditations, but not someone telling you the history through it. That's something I didn't have. It was all research people, Even when it came to UFOs, I had experiencers, right, which connected to the spiritual information about consciousness, but I didn't have people channeling those ETs anymore, because I also started moving away from it because I wanted to have more tangible information to basically bring out to the masses. And I also feel, like you said and shared, that I want the Portal to Ascension, we're a one-stop shop for all this information. We're for people who are awake and people who are waking up. So when people are waking up, they can find a place, a library with all this awareness. And for so long, I would say, I'm not here to preach to the choir, even though the choir is well. Like, we're here to teach the linear-minded people how we're all one, right?
Yeah.
And without attachment, if they choose to go that route or not, right? So it's like, so it provides so much evidence-based information on the platform, right? And now I started shifting into bringing the other parts on a bit more, and that's because I've had my own experiences where I've had regressions done, I've
Nice.
started seeing things through meditation. And now that I'm seeing it more of a reality, my skeptical side, because believe it or not, I'm actually a huge skeptic.
Yeah.
You
For sure.
know? So that my skeptical side is kind of being appeased a bit. So now I'm open up to different ways of bringing this information forth.
I think that's super
Skepticism
important. Yeah, super
really is.
important. And that's why we have our channels called Critical Logical Rational Thought, or CLR Thought.
Mhm.
That was the idea, is because we'll follow the pattern of where the dots connect. We'll follow that to the end until it leads you to a dead end. But don't just say, oh,
Mhm.
that's not possible from what we know of history.
Yeah.
That can't be true from what the science we know and the math we know. So why would
Right.
you just throw it out, baby, with the bathwater kind of thing? Like, you have to think rationally without bias and without
Yeah.
judgment. I mean, that's super important. So yeah, we were both skeptics, even of our grandfather and all the stuff he said. We're like, I don't know about it. How do we
Mhm.
believe it? So it
Yeah.
takes a lot of research, a lot of digging, and finding your own like inner voice, inner truth to kind of help you guide
Right.
you.
And I like to share with people about this kind of the science behind consciousness and vibration frequency dimensions, because that when you start realizing how the universe works on some level, right? We still have limited perspective, that you can start being more accepting of hypnotherapy, taking people to ET lives and past lives, and receiving information. Because
Mhm.
ultimately, we're in this planet of amnesia. Like, we don't remember our past
Definitely.
lives, we don't
Yeah.
remember our ET lives, but we do know that we've had them. And there's enough documentaries out there on past lives where there's like
Oh yeah.
conservative Christian family. Son keeps thinking that he's burning in an airplane. All of a sudden, they go to the town he talks about, meets his brother and sister. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
mind blowing stuff, right? And so we know that it can be proven that this exists. Plus, near death experiences. The
Right.
reason why that it's come on ABC talking about NDEs now, the reason why we are a part, Portal Ascension is part of the largest near death experience conference every year, where there's full of doctors, clinicians, therapists, nurses there. The reason for that is because you cannot deny that what is actually happening to people. So with that awareness and understanding, you can start seeing that this universe is kind of holographic in nature.
Yep.
We're vibrating frequency, right? We're not solid beings. So if we're vibrating frequency, what are we?
Right.
Like, are we some very advanced organic program? And is the program able to be, the code able to be changed? And are
Right.
we the coders of that? Or we,
Exactly.
so if that's the case, right? You already know this. I already just gave a snippet of a whole entire presentation just on that information that will make people understand how you can connect to spirituality, meditation, and past life regression, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love
Beautiful.
that you bring in the science aspect of it, and that opens it up to
Yeah.
so many more people that would be totally tuned out by the topic just going into it cold, So that makes all the
Exactly.
difference in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the CIA documents, man. I mean, the CIA stuff that's come out, like the gateway process and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
ultra remote viewing and the things that they've done that you can just see on their own websites, right? They know all this information. The reason
Exactly.
why, like, in what was it? ATIP was not ATIP. That was just the code name for it. It was OSWAT, which was basically supernatural phenomena. Was the main program, was all supernatural,
Mhm.
and then they deliberately made sure that they wouldn't put the supernatural stuff out on, when Lou Elizondo came out with all this information, because they didn't want to scare people away. But the program had UFOs a part of the bigger program that was about exploring supernatural realities,
Right.
right? So
Right.
they know what's going on, and they're actually spending time and money researching it.
Right. I was gonna say, like, yeah, we should have changed our whole world should have changed with quantum mechanics, quantum physics, all that
Yeah.
should have, and all the scientists back then knew it, but the establishment was what was keeping everybody from even taking that seriously at all. They're just like, oh, but how do we equate it to our world, the macrocosm? And because it was too advanced. I mean, but all the brilliant minds back then were like, this changes everything if we actually
Mhm.
do take this to heart, that we can change, whether things are a particle or a wave or anything like that. It's goes so great beyond. Yeah.
You're saying exactly, like, pretty much the exact same thing I say, is that when you look at these quantum physics experiments, double slit experiment, non-locality, And for example, if a tree falls in the wood, does it make a sound? Well, if it's a subatomic tree, it doesn't. You know, because subatomically, it doesn't happen unless you freaking observe it, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but the subatomic world are the building blocks of the Newtonian world, but they contradict each other, right? And all those things shouldn't. If we took the time just to reflect on it, right, is paradigm shifting. And once we reflect on it, then we need to research it even more. Well, what does that really mean for who we are?
Yes. And I was going to say, and I've seen, there's so many times I've heard you talk and I'm like, man, I'm like I'm right with you. And like, I know, I feel like a way to sum up a lot of this too is with the mind and the consciousness aspect. It's like people say space is the final frontier, but it's really not, because it's our mind. Our consciousness is the final frontier, because that
Mhm.
creates our universe. So honestly, unless we know how the mind works and consciousness works, we won't really grasp all of the universe and time and space and how we can use it to our advantage.
Yeah, that's beautifully said, man. 'Cause, like, even when it comes to people who visit ETs, right?
Mhm.
Most of them go through meditation. So basically, they're going through the subatomic world within them, right? And you know, Nassim Haramein speaks about how every atom has a singularity, right? And we're made of infinite singularity. So could it be that what we're really doing is going through a wormhole within our own consciousness and our own body, and then by
Yeah,
doing that, we're able to experience and see other places in the universe and talk to different beings.
exactly. It's that portal to ascension. It's that gateway to the other side. And we say shred the veil too, in a way, because we're saying shred the veil of all the secrecy of what needs to be revealed that's been hidden from us. And we just think on the 3D level, and it's so much more than that. And
Mhm,
yeah,
exactly.
going within, we will find all the answers we need outside of us. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the. I mean, if you, I don't know if you ever heard my stuff in Paradox, but the paradox is my favorite word. You know, if I could change my rapper name, it would be Paradox, MC Paradox.
Yeah.
Because because straight up, that's what it is, dude. Like you cannot go without going within. Paradoxical, right? The
Right.
universe is infinite, but there's got to be something outside the universe. So technically, it's finite. How does that work? You're a solid being. I see what solid matter, right? So it's like, what happens when we start understanding the paradox? Maybe we can't understand it. Maybe we just need to accept the fact that it exists, right? And
Right.
reason why I know we are more limited than many of us believe is because of our inability to fathom a paradox. But everything is based on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like people know it. They instinctively know, like, the world we live in, there's more to it. It's not the true reality. It's not all there is. There's got to be something deeper. But I think we've been programmed so much, and the masses especially have been programmed to say this is comfortable. I want to be comfortable instead of finding out all the answers. And
Exactly.
yeah, maybe that's the biggest test. And I think the UFO aspect of disclosure is one of the greatest tests we'll have to face as a culture, as a society. Yeah.
Right, because look how many people are now in the awareness of the government programs, David Grush, all this information. Living in England for the last 6 months, I went to a small little village town on my way to the other coast. And I'm getting a haircut from this Turkish barber just moved from Turkey. And this is the day after the UFO hearings, right? And he says to me, did you know that the US government just had a hearing on UFOs and alien life? And I'm like, bro, did I?
Yeah.
Well, that's my full-time job.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, but it was the most random, unique experience we wouldn't even think about that would happen like that, right?
That's
And
awesome. Yeah.
that's how it's permeated into people's lives. But what are people doing about it?
Right.
They this It's almost like it's too much to even integrate into their reality and society. And that's a part of the prep plan as well. Make people so busy and preoccupied with all these experiences and having to stimuli everywhere, having to work so hard to survive
Yeah.
that you don't even have really time to reflect on. And not that many people have been educated on what happens when we realize we're not alone in the universe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. There's a lot behind that whole, that's a Pandora's box, and it's the big, and that's what our grandfather said, and everybody from Dr. Greer's first disclosure project was saying, this is all about free energy that we have that we should be utilizing right now. 100 years ago, we had it, and we've just been
Yeah.
we bamboozled, as you know, a lot of them, like Dan Willis says, it's like there's just way too much behind that. Hey, guess what? We're not alone, and they've been here, and we've
Hmm.
reversed engineered craft, and or we've had that technology. So
It's just so much happening. I mean, Stephen Greer said that they reverse engineered anti-gravity in October 1953. That's when we
yeah,
mastered anti-gravity.
yeah, that is wild. Yeah, and
And
there's a
that
lot
was
of
like 20 years after the Nazis had already done it, right?
Yeah,
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 exactly.
yep. We owe a lot to we owe a lot to the Nazis, but honestly, it goes way beyond, okay, who's good, who's bad in this whole story. Because if we know anything about the way the world runs, there's those people at the top that don't give a crap who's fighting who, as long as somebody's fighting, and they're going to gain something out of it.
Yeah,
And I think it's already been shown that the U.S. helped fund the Nazis in the war and helped
yeah,
get a lot of money and backing and everything. So it's yeah, they play both sides for their benefit, but for whatever
100%.
reason, that occult aspect of what the Nazis were doing, that kind of jump started a lot of the discussion, a lot of where we got our advancement. People don't think that way, but we owe that. Like you said, there's the evil side that plays its part, but it also brings out the light and brings it to.
During the whole the Nazi, the World War II, and had over a few million people in India died under English rule. Okay, and through what was it? Basically, they took away the local farming community and whatever they were producing. I forget what it was. I don't think it was rice. And then they forced people into specific jobs that weren't paying them enough money that they were getting when they were farming, because it took away that industry from them. And then since they weren't getting paid enough money, they then increased the price of food to twice the cost that it was before, and no one could even pay for even a quarter of the food they needed. And over 2 million Indians died
Wow.
during World War II in India because of that, right?
Gee. Yeah.
So it was like, that's almost like a Holocaust in India right there. No one talks about that. So it's so, not to say that one side is good over the other, right? I'm just
Mhm.
saying that the atrocities go around plentiful, and there's a lot going on. But you're right, like so much of the technology, I mean, we'd have to do a deeper dive, but all the information is out there that you could find out all the technologies that derive directly from Nazis, right?
Yeah.
We wouldn't have the world. Even von Braun, the head of NASA,
Yeah.
was the head of the Nazi space program, right? There's a
Exactly.
reason why they brought them all over to the U.S. to Project Paperclip.
Right, right. And his testimony through Carol Rawson in Disclosure Project, that he told the last card's going to be the alien card after all the terrorism and all those other stages that they're going to set in place. So yeah, no, it's so true. We owe a lot of where we're at least, even not in the mainstream, but we advanced. The U.S. advanced so much from the Nazis, and in a negative way for sure. People don't realize how many black projects and atrocities have happened just with civilians or within people within the military that go through whatever mind wiping and who knows what to get what they want. Yeah, it's like free labor,
Right,
we
right.
don't get about all this stuff. But
Did you see the Joe Rogan interview with David Grush?
I love little clippets of it, a little
So
bit.
you should watch the whole thing. It's probably the best one he's done. And in there, a few times Joe Rogan asked him some things, and he couldn't answer them directly, but he said, well, you can allude that, you can infer that, because he just couldn't say yes, but he was pretty much saying yes.
Yeah.
And one thing that I got from it was that it seems like maybe every war has got something to do with ETs and hiding this topic, especially in the last 100 years. But
Yeah.
one thing he said was that the 1933 crash in Italy when Mussolini got the UFO,
Yeah.
the first documented crash, could actually, Joe Rogan said, was there one earlier than that? He said, well, I can't really tell you, but you can infer that, right?
Yeah.
So basically, he's alluding to the fact that there was actually multiple crashes before that had been captured. But then, just for everybody who hasn't heard that story out there, basically the crash occurred 1933, and the Germans, Tim Tactics, who's been on our platform a few times, speaks about this because he's part of the German space program, and the Germans during the 1910s and 20s were very advanced, and they were already working on types of technologies that could fly and anti-gravity kind of things. Maybe not with ET UFOs, but they were really trying to look for like propulsion, rockets, and all this stuff. And then, so when 1933 happened, the Italians were like, "Oh, this must be German because we
Right.
know they're working on this
Right.
stuff."
Yeah.
So they contacted the Germans, had them come over and take a look. German said, "No, it's not ours, but we'd love to look at it with you." And that began the premise. This is what he said.
It's-
Became the premise of the Axis
yeah.
powers connected together
Right.
over a UFO crash.
Right.
And then 1945, towards the end of the war, the US government goes into Italy and steals the UFO and brings it back to the US.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That the dates are too much in alignment with,
Yeah.
you know, to be a coincidence.
Exactly.
For
Exactly.
sure.
I remember that story. And I was like, yeah, that makes complete sense. They're looking for who's willing to take this technology or help advance it, and you know, we can both benefit from it and see where it goes. And Japanese, of course, have been a culture that's always been about let's advance as much as possible with technology. And so that makes sense. I'm not sure the exact story of how they became in alignment, but I'm sure that aspect of things had something to do with it as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So history, I mean, we talk about so much on PTA that history has been manipulated and distorted and written and rewritten by the victors. But when people think we're talking about 1,000, 5,000, 13,000 years ago, no, it happened yesterday. You know, it happened 100 years ago, World
Yeah.
War I, World War II. And now it's like if you say anything against that narrative, even though you just want to bring some logical perspective to this whole thing of like, well, look what the English were doing, and both sides of the war were funded by the same people, right? Then all of a sudden you're canceled, you're a bigot, you're racist, you're all this stuff.
Right.
And so it's really challenging to come out with this information when people are so emotionally triggered from you even coming up with something that goes against what people have been brainwashed to believe.
I totally agree. And that, yeah, it goes back to the UFO topic in general. Just everybody was supposed to be a crackpot, crazy person for mentioning UFO. And our grandfather knew that from being part of those people that would say, okay, you didn't see this. You have to dismiss any accounts that this was, or, just made fun of, ridiculed until if you don't be quiet, they're going to put you down. They're going to take you out or threaten your family, whatever. So, but it's social engineering on so many levels with all of our history and how we perceive the world is so obvious.
And a lot of that whole movement, came over with Project Paperclip, not just into the space program, but infiltrating, our economy, the banking system, the food industry, drugs, everything, it's something.
Well, they took over. Like, I feel what happened is that they came over as the scientists and who or whatever else, and then they ended up running for office, and their people connected to them ended up becoming politicians as well, and they took over the government on some level, but then they realized just killing a bunch of people isn't the way, and now through diplomacy, proxy wars, and all these other elements of control, mind control, food, all these things are different ways to control the masses without creating such a huge impact in one moment that the rest of the world goes against them. I mean, that's putting it lightly. I mean, you would have to go deeper to figure out really what's going on there, but it feels like they infiltrated and took over on some level.
Definitely. And that goes back in, if you want to go down farther in the rabbit hole of how we're connected to certain species and how the reptilians have been here for however many thousands of years in the Nagas and all the different stories of those reptilian species. But no wonder the Nazis were kind of tied to that, or those that want to slowly over hundreds of years gain power and control. Well, they're using that sort of tactic that maybe they even have those deals and have whatever their bloodline, their genetics is more tied to that species than say the others, the Pleiadians or whatever, the Lyrans, that we're all being influenced on many different sides. That's part of
right. Well, you've probably seen like maybe the video clips of Hitler and his people in the Himalayas measuring the faces of Tibetans, trying to figure out the bloodline of the Aryans, and that they went and measured Tibetan faces. So, and it in that in itself is not because they were basically racist against all people on the planet. There were specific races that they had a vendetta against that could actually be connected to maybe the ETs and the ET bloodline, but then they weren't come against the Indians, they weren't against the Tibetans, and they even thought that the Tibetan people had traces of the same bloodline that they had in their
exactly. Yeah, I think so. They were trying to trace back whatever that advanced, even spiritual, whatever that power was from these races, and how it tied back to I guess the Aryan race, whatever you want to call it. But
yeah,
that was their main objective, was to find that superior race in those genes and make sure they had it all, you know. But um, another topic though, I'm curious when you for example, with the Atlantis stuff, when you're collecting all this information, you have all these different sources. Do you find that there is a lot of conflict between the stories of these things, or does it a lot of align? So when you put together a webinar or a deep dive on something, does it's pretty coherent, or is it a lot of different perspectives that piece together that maybe no mesh
yeah.
necessarily?
But so I get both experiences, right? And for the most part, things are pretty coherent because there's not people just have their own. When it comes to timelines, when it comes to when this occurred,
right,
how things fell, maybe this some like how Atlantis fell. There's a few people have different opinions on it, but maybe they only have one perspective because Atlantis supposedly fell in 3 stages and 3 cataclysms happened. So maybe they're just speaking about the tail end of one. Who knows, right? They could have just experienced that. But when it comes to timelines, and I'll speak about timelines in a second, like when did this happen? How long ago was this civilization? Yes. Now, say I did a True World History Conference 2 weeks ago. It was a 3-day event, 8-9 hours a day, True World History. We had 22 speakers. And within that, there was a couple people that spoke about Tartaria, right?
yeah. Okay.
And so after my time exploring it, I'm feeling that maybe a lot of Tartarian information isn't actually true, right? And so a lot of Tartarian people get offended if I say that. So hopefully I'm not offending you.
No, I'm fascinated by that. I definitely want to learn more for sure about
Yeah.
Tatar.
So the Tartaria existed, and there was a place in Russia, but was it a whole global civilization with free energy? And was there 100 years wiped from the books about 100 years ago? And has every single grandparent, every single ancestor, every single book in the world that doesn't speak about that 100 years all been done by liars and manipulators? That's why you got to start thinking about, well, what level of conspiracy is involved here?
Yeah.
And the only way that it could be that is if literally this is a simulation and somebody clicked the reset button and then we just got our memories wiped, like some Matrix dark crystal stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like that, which is also possible. But so and then the Tartaria people normally are the same people that are flat earthers. You know?
Yeah. Okay.
I was just like, not to like diss on anything because I can even give you an argument for both sides. I know why people are saying certain things. So now back to the timeline thing. One thing that I was kind of curious about for a long time was that I'm hearing all these stories of seedings of humanity. The Lyran story, the Palladian and the Syrian story, the Anunnaki story, and some of them overlapped. And then also there's evidence of primitive people existing at the same time. There was a global advanced civilization, right? So that one I've reconciled with the fact that there were great advanced civilizations and there were probably primitive people living in other parts of the world, right? But the other one of how does these stories overlap was either that maybe there was different incarnations of humanity that weren't all Homo sapien, right? Different experiments, and or that this is the one I'm really gravitating towards is that we are in a time now where a lot of timelines are converging. And many of us have had different experiences on our own historical Earth. Some of those Earth experiences that wasn't the Anunnaki history, right? And as the timelines are converging in order to an ascended Earth, because every time the planet ascends, it's a collapsing of timelines below it. You have more parallel realities below, like the lower you get, and then the higher you get, the closer it gets to lesser and lesser until we
Yeah.
get the ultimate truth where you just one
Right.
reality.
Singularity. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel that's what's happening, is that all these people from different realities are coming together as we were ascending. So that's one of the biggest contradictions I've seen with people giving timelines and things and just throwing out dates. Atlantis was around for 100,000 years, things like that, you know. So, and I wish we could figure out exactly what the dates are and when Lemuria was and things like that. Maybe there will be a day. Maybe once we're no longer have amnesia, we'll remember all this stuff. But at this point, even though I do sometimes, to be honest with you, guess people say things on the platform that I feel inherently is maybe not real or true, you know?
Mhm.
But then
Mhm.
I'm also have to do a balance between allowing different perspectives to come
Right.
out me trying to get involved because I don't want to I don't want to censor stuff, you
Right.
know? So that's the kind of dance that I'm playing with all this.
Yeah, I bet that's a fine line to do, but to have to
Mhm.
do that. But so far, it seems like it's worked out pretty well. There hasn't been any
Yeah.
crazy blowups or anything. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we all want the truth, and we all have a just slightly different version. Yeah, like you said, but maybe those are the different timelines. I totally agree that could be possible. Yeah, makes
Right.
sense.
I'll say that one other contradiction is the reptilian stuff, right?
Uh-huh.
And and it's not that it contradicts, it's that people have their own experiences and we give blanket statements to our experience as if that's the end all be all, right? For example, like Stephen Greer's thing about positive ET, no negative ET, right?
Right.
And
Right.
people just say that because they don't ever listen to his information. He got so much more information explaining that, and people just like resort to that immediately, right?
Right.
But that could also just be his experience because that's who he's connected with. And to say that the beings that we're connecting with because they're at a higher dimension or tapped into more technology and awareness are the ultimate truth, maybe that their dimensional experience is also a limited perspective on an even greater truth, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I feel that's probably what it is. Unless you're like complete supreme head source, you're not going to have complete all awareness. Each dimension is what I like to say is a data set of information. And
Mhm.
you might tap into the next dimensional data set, but that's still a limited version of what comes after that, right?
Yeah.
And so now when it comes to reptilians, I am an advocate for reptilian rights, guys. I gotta I'm a reptilian activist now, but I am an advocate for the fact that there is no one polarity for ETs,
Yeah.
that beings have been polarized on both sides. And from my experiences, hundreds of hours of information, research, and listening to people and regressions, only about 5% of the reptilian races are negative. And the reptilian, serpentine, dragon races were here before humans incarnated into our galaxy,
Right.
right?
Right.
They actually, it was
It was
no,
their plan.
it was their playing field.
Yeah.
And the original wound between, I'm doing a presentation on PTA in 5 months called The Orion Wars, Reptilian History, and the Stargate to Earth. And it's going to go into the DNA wars and what happened. And
Wow.
basically, the humans were master geneticists, and they incarnated and they began experimenting with genetics without the permission of the host species. And by doing that, they started messing with reptilian DNA, creating the first break in the connection. And first war was actually a righteous war for the reptilians, if you can call it that, because they were upset at the humans and what they were doing with DNAs without the people's permission, right? After that, a lot of stuff went down. Inherent evil, kind of crazy stuff went down for the reptilian side and everything. But it's like, who cast the first stone? You know, who do you really truly blame at all this stuff? Because it's honestly just a dance that we're playing here.
Yeah.
And the reptilians, they represent the shadow work of Earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And shadow work, as you probably know, isn't a bad thing. So
Yeah.
they're giving us that reflection. So even the ones that do evil are really not doing evil. They're giving us an opportunity, right?
Right.
And then nine of them that are benevolent, so much so that they literally don't even care about Earth because they got their own stuff to think about. You know what I'm saying? And but we give a blanket statement over the whole of reptilian races because of our wound, just like the wound we had when we had the trauma of a great flood, right?
Right.
And now we'll talk about it. So what I've done on Portal Ascension is sometimes people come on and then they speak really badly about specific ET races. And for me, I feel that's a very limited perspective. So now what I've started doing is I've started incorporating events where we talk about polarity in ET races and the galactic journey and the history, because we're not going to ascend or reach any sense of enlightenment if we're judging one side of them. Because it's not only that we're literally judging ourselves because their DNA is in us, right? But we're also not willing to confront the darkness within ourselves if we're not willing to integrate with the darkness that we're seeing externally.
Right. Right. Totally agree with that in so many ways. And like you said, that our genetics are mixed as well. But they had such a role to play in what we see. I was going to say, like, compare it to like the humans going to another planet. Well, who would probably go except the ones that want to dominate and control that planet? Say like the Nazis, for instance, that supposedly have the best technology to go out into the stars and beyond. So think of that planet, that indigenous whoever species on the planet, and being like, oh, all humans must be terrible because these crazy, who are the Nazis, are coming in and taking over. What do you expect?
Yeah.
Well, that's one little small part of the humans. So you just think about that for a second.
Exactly. I say also that if someone in ET, like say there's two ETs on the planet and one of them's like, hey, it's been a while since we visited Earth. Let's go down there and say what's up with them and hang out with them now. I think it's time. And then the guy goes, oh, hells no. I went down there 2,000 years ago and they had freaking, I was in Italy and they had heads on spikes.
Yeah, right.
like, how can we're talking about stories hundreds of thousands of years ago, millions of years ago.
Yeah.
How can we cast judgment when so much time has passed, when we don't accept that from other people about us, right?
Yeah.
Things change.
Yeah, exactly.
That's such great perspective. Yeah, I mean, that really paints a picture of like we can't just take one snapshot in time and make a judgment on a whole species or a whole race, or it's just kind of ignorant. Yeah.
I'm really glad you're going into the deep dive in that history, and the fact that you have so many sources coming to say, this is kind of it, and look, and when you do that, look at the statistics of what lines up, how many people, whether it's channelers or whatever, are saying this is basically the story. That's what I like about Dolores Cannon's work, and now like Sarah Breskman doing all the work she's doing to get all those perspectives from, and these are people that are just like Edgar Cayce, for instance. He didn't believe in anything ET or whatever. He's like a fundamental Christian, and all of a sudden he goes to sleep and he wakes up and he says, oh wow, I guess I healed this person, or I told these predictions that have come true or not, or whatever. But these are, a lot of these people don't believe in this stuff. It's just when you go through regression and to that deep level, you get access to your higher self, I guess, in a way, right? Different
and that just gives everything more validity when someone's not experiencing it. I just had Sarah on like 3 different events. She was on the Atlantis one too, and she's going to be on the cruise ship as well. Like I've got her in a lot of things coming up, and it's because like I love to just show people all this information for sure, but I love to show people when someone doubts that this is even a possibility, right? Because Sarah didn't think she would ever be into this, right? But then the people that she regressed, they weren't spiritual, they were nation, never even heard of Atlantis before, right? And they're going there. So that just gives us more of a reason to explore really what's going on here.
Yeah, for sure. And I think at the end of the day, I was going to mention that about those species, negative or whatever it is. But I feel like we attract what we put out there. And like if our consciousness and our level of understanding, or of knowledge, of understanding of our own experiences, if we are tapped into those lower levels and even emotional intelligence and things, we'll attract some negative stuff. And I think but then you can say, well, how come some of these positive people are getting abducted and things? That might be true too. And I think there's always a contract in place. And I think there's people that have chosen to go through that to then tell the story, or, somehow reveal something. There's always got to be a meaning behind that polarity and why it's there.
Right. And most abduction experiences are negative, even if people perceive it. Are you familiar with Ray Hernandez at all?
I don't think so, no.
So he worked with Edgar Mitchell Foundation. Pretty great person to have on your platform. He has a book called Beyond UFOs, and
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know that book.
and he is like, it's like that big, it's huge, right?
I
And
might
it's
have.
all data,
Yeah.
data and information on surveys, it's academic surveys. Like he's really like linear minded, with this information. It's definitely spiritual, but he loves to prove through evidence. So with the survey, Mary Rodwell helped him out too. They asked all these questions about abduction experiences. So, thousands of people responded, and it talks about, did you have a negative experience? Yes or no? Check yes. Okay. How did you feel about it a year later? Oh, it was actually positive.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
The initial trauma and the percentage of how many people had positive abduction experience over negative is quite substantial. And then it also says what beings you visit connected to positive and negative experience. It goes intricate with
Uh-huh.
all of this stuff. So a lot of times these abduction experiences are traumatic because of the way you're taken out of your body and you're seeing, or taken out of reality, and you're seeing things that you probably never even thought you would, right?
Right. Right.
And when it comes to like hardcore abduction experiences, there's documents out now that those might be actually DOD.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say it's military. It's my
Dude,
lab.
man.
So, yeah.
Yo, straight
Yeah.
up. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And that's what I think that's going to be the hardest thing of disclosure. And that's what I was going to ask you about where the movement's going and the
Yeah.
UFO topic. But I think the disclosure that's really, they want to do a drip also because they don't
Yeah.
want everybody to know all the dark stuff they've been involved with and how
Mhm.
they've done my labs. And they've done, of course, they're abducting people. And that's been part of the game to say, okay, this is evil. UFOs are bad. ETs are bad. We're going to plant that memory in your head to the masses to just make sure that's the narrative they want to keep playing, so they can then eventually put the ET card, throw that last ET card out there, and have the false flag alien invasion if that ever does come to pass.
Mhm.
I think at this point we're just too awake for that. But what's
Yeah.
your take? What's your take, I guess, on where disclosure is going right now, and positively, and or
I
yeah,
feel
I
like,
think
okay, so yeah, go ahead, Daniel. You
I
can
was
say,
just gonna say, yeah, at least from like the the narrative that they're trying to put out there. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
I find it hard to believe that they'll ever admit the full truth of anything. I mean, there's so many people that have to be arrested and incarcerated and all that stuff, and then something amazing would have to happen to expose all that for the real truth. So, where they really want to take the narrative,
yeah.
I guess is what I'm
And I'll speak about that in a second. But in regards to who gets arrested, I mean, maybe they could say that, well, this from 80 years ago, we weren't in charge of it, so it's not on us. We just inherited it, because who were the original people that created the secrecy, and who's continuing it? So
Mhm.
I don't know about the arresting, but I do feel like the only way disclosure is going to happen on a really deeper level and a transparent level is if certain people are held accountable, especially because like what's going on now, like David Grush, Greer, and everything, is that people are being killed over this stuff, right? Families are being threatened. And we can't have a transparent, ascended world if that's the world that we're building it on top of. So right now, like with the whole David Grush thing, there's so much information coming out to the point that it's just like permeating all over the world, really. And yet, even though, like, just a logical perspective looking at it, I'm like, wow, this is huge, what's happening. They're still fighting like hardcore to not release any. And by fighting so much, right? All
Mhm.
they're doing is making people realize how much the secrecy is. And
Yes.
all they're doing is making the congressional members also be like, wait a second, this is way bigger than we thought, right?
Yep.
And they can't be that stupid that they don't realize that, because I'm not dumb and I realize it. So
Yeah.
the atrocities are so huge, what they've done to the masses and what they continue to do. The black budget programs that they were regular programs and then they failed, so they went off the books, but actually continued getting paid black budget money, including probably the $1 trillion that went missing before 9/11, probably
Yeah.
went to that shit,
Yeah.
like all that stuff. Like
Right.
when we start realizing that level of depth, they like, it's inevitable that this stuff's coming out, and they can't even get behind allowing it to come out, because people knowing the full truth of what they've done is going to be so than just them admitting that there was UFOs all along,
Yeah.
right? So where it's going on, people don't believe. There's three things here. I just want to mention: the Tom DeLonge Hillary Clinton narrative, the David Grush and Lou Elizondo part of that, the David Grush narrative, and then we have let me speak about those first. So the Tom DeLonge Hillary Clinton one was hardcore drip disclosure, right? It's like WikiLeaks emails came out. Hillary Clinton's on Jimmy Kimmel's show saying, "Oh, we don't call them UFOs." She's the one who rebranded UAPs. She's the one who went out there and said it, right? And then Tom DeLonge being a part of that, and Tom DeLonge going on Joe Rogan and showing him some of the craft on the internet, and them showing it on the Joe Rogan show that he had been just spoke about on his Twitter feed when he came out with all those people, including Lou Elizondo.
Yep.
And he had just said that they're witnessing guys, and now he's on Joe Rogan saying, "Oh yeah, there are hours, and look at these videos." And then what happened next? He got pulled from that. He got pulled as the frontman. Fast forward 5 years later, I'm looking at Tom DeLonge's Twitter. I'm like, what happened to this guy? And he literally did a whole video on it, saying that he was on Joe Rogan. He showed things that he wasn't allowed to show. They told him he can't do this anymore, right?
Uh-huh.
So, but they continue the drip disclosure because people like us, Greer, all these people are pushing for this information so much that if it comes out in a way that they don't control it, they can be held accountable for some huge crimes against humanity, right? And for huge lies, even not only the lies that we know about, but the lies about people dying from sicknesses they don't need to die from.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And so that's one thing. And then all of a sudden, so we have the Ryan Graves, UFOs in the sky, and all this stuff coming out. And then all of a sudden, we have the deeper version of this stuff, which is the stuff that we're into, crashes, human bodies being found, and all this stuff. A whole level of depth, 20 times more than any of the stuff coming out. Right. And now we have finally a push from the DoD freaking out, right? And so to me, that's one sign that shows me that, wait a second, this has probably got more truth associated with it. Plus, I've worked with Clifford Stone, other people that were actually the ones in these programs talking about it, right? So I've heard the story enough to know that there's some truth there. But then we have the congressional members coming a part of it, and now we have the jaded, awakened community that are like, "Oh, Congress is coming behind it. Oh, this is all BS. This is psyop," right? But what they don't realize is not everybody is read into this stuff, but a lot of them do have egos. A lot of them are power hungry, and because of that corruption element, we automatically they're all aware of something else. Mm-hmm. But what happened here, it seems, is that when they started realizing that there were secret programs that they weren't aware of, and they thought they all had top secret clearing, maybe their egos did get wounded a bit because they found out that there was something that was going on under their noses that was one of the biggest stories ever that they were completely clueless about. Right? Some of them are fighting for not releasing this information, and those are the ones being funded by the DoD and Congress. But the rest of them that don't have direct funding from the DoD are pretty much like, something's going on. What is it? So just to wrap that up there, I feel that they were doing a drip disclosure, but then David Grush story put a wrench in the whole drip disclosure project here. And now they're trying to frantically figure out how they can hold some of this truth back and release it at a slower pace, maybe. I do feel that it's pretty much inevitable. And I agree with what someone said recently, is that they got the memo from some ETs, some beings that they're connected with, that there's going to be a mass landing within a certain amount of years. Some of them say 2025 is the year, and that they pretty much need to get their stuff together and figure out how they're going to introduce this to the world, or else basically it's all going to be exposed.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, there's got to be something that's pushing them forward a little bit more and more. And I don't know. I'm glad that Grush came out and did what he did. I think it's definitely moving in the right direction. But I feel like that too. I feel like he, in a way, he's being very careful. I'm sure he has, he's threatened for his life. But I feel like that's also, they can still, to me, it seems like they can use what he comes out with and how fast he says things, really still have control of the ball of like how to move things forward. I just feel like a lot has been still kept under the rug. I mean, all that Greer came out with, he came out with whatever he did with those other 4 amazing testimonies, or 5, out right within the same week or two, and nobody talks about it. Nobody mentions a word about it. So I feel like that was really odd. Super
Right,
odd.
like the whole Antarctica thing, right? The directed energy weapon in Antarctica, right? Come out before, but came out again when Stephen Gray did that press conference. And the fact that, and he also said that the Antarctica South Pole Station acts as basically has some sort of technology can detect neutrons coming off craft coming in and out of our atmosphere. So it's a way station for in and outgoing UFO traffic, which is exactly what they did in the show Stargate.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know if you watched that show. It's the biggest disclosure show in the world, not the movie. It's Stargate.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
serious.
watch all that stuff. Yeah. So yeah, like the stuff that is huge, and on some level, it's a completely shift in perspective on society and civilization and our history as we know it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what I feel we have in store for ourselves is that I believe honestly that it's inevitable that this information has come out and that we're going to have open contact very soon.
Yeah.
And with that, a shift in consciousness is going to happen as well. So what is a good thing is that every time that they try to hide something, all it does is wake more people up. So, and that's what's been going on for a while. Everything they do backfires, man. You know, look at COVID. I feel that COVID is backfiring on them as well right now. You know, they're just waking more and more people are waking up to it. But all we need is more people to be aware that we're not alone in the universe. And when everybody can just accept that, that's the first step for us to then eventually maybe have them land and us interact with them.
I totally agree. Yeah. I think you're pushing it in the right direction because I mean, I think there's a lot of conflict and there's not a lot of unity in the disclosure movement right now. You can see it everywhere. But as long as you like are true to finding out the truth, you're always true. It's not like you need to be the first to say this or that, or I'm the only one that has the answers. If the people that are trying to be awake are just can kind of use their BS meter and use the filter as much as possible, but make sure that whatever they're hearing is resonating with them and that truth is coming out, because it is very deceptive. A lot of people are deceiving in this community. I think that's one of the things we have to get over, but it's a ripple effect that started. And I think our consciousness is going to rise no matter what. Like we're going to be
right. And a lot of us, they want to create, they want us to be docile. You know, they want us to not worry about the stuff and not get, not to be concerned or get upset at what's been happening to us. You know, so it comes through our food, comes through our media programming, all this stuff. But the ultimate truth, I would say, one of the truths here is that a lot of people, you know, when I post things on Instagram or around, there's a lot of people that just get angry at me even posting. No, most people are cool with it, but there's a lot of people that just say psyop, and then you are an ignorant, like whatever to me, right? Or you just don't know any better. Psyop. Okay, now back to my job. Let me click away at this computer, right? That's pretty much what's going on. Yeah. But what we have to realize is whether this is an actual truth. Well, first of all, we're not alone in the universe. There's enough information out there to suggest that. But whether they are lying to us or this is true, the lie, say that this whole David Grush, Tom DeLonge UFO thing is a complete lie. ETs are here, maybe they're not interacting with the government, but they've created this whole scenario and it's IOP. That in itself should make you be like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, exactly.
That in itself should be like, wait a second, they're investing all this time, energy, money, spending millions of dollars in programs in order to create a lie for us, 17 million native, black budget money, hardcore being shown to be part of this, a whole industry around it, and they're doing a psyop. Whoa, what are they going to do? Right?
Yeah.
Or we're not alone in the universe, the government's interacting with them and they have dissected ET bodies. That's pretty huge, right? Yeah, exactly. So ultimately, both of these realities are out there right now, and they're on the forefront because there is going to be a change. Whether it's a control mechanism that's coming in for one last hoorah of complete, utter control of humanity because this is psyop, or whether it's coming to a realization now we're not alone in the universe. And what's the next step? I feel that it's time for us to wake up and really lay attention to it.
I totally agree. And if those people want to believe that it's all just a big psyop, then if it's like you just said, like, well, then what else have they been lying to us about for the last 100-some+ years that go to the health system, to anything, education, our history, how they teach us this and that, how they've, whatever it is, the crimes against humanity is endless as far as what's been going on. And so people can get upset about that, at least if they don't want to touch this topic or feel it's too much. But like, look, we gotta get the government and those in power we gotta stand up and say enough's enough. We want our sovereignty back one way or another.
Right. And then other people say that, I'm taking this opportunity to clear up some things that I heard out there that don't get to say it to people on a one-on-one level, is that if they are interacting with us, actually, I lost my train of thought there in this moment. I'll just say this because I lost my train of thought there. But the lies that have been happening for quite some time has now made people realize that even some of the most honest governments that we thought were the most honest governments in the world are actually some of the biggest liars that have just kind of did this whole facade around them being the good guys in the world, right? So, and us just being a part of that system in itself is not sustainable, right? Do we want to continue living that reality of lies, or do we want to create something new? And I understand that it's a challenge, because what does that even mean? Like, okay, we want to create something new. I'm just a person here out of my accounting job working away, right? Like, how do I connect with the right people to create this new world? Because most of us, a lot of people need to get together and all say no in order for the system to not work. But that's another divide and conquer thing. We're too fragmented in that reality. And to lose our basic comforts might even mean hot water not working for our showers, to lose those basic comforts would make it that a lot of people don't want to do certain changes that could actually work for the betterment of all of humanity in the future.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah.
It's a catch-22 in many ways.
Yes, it's another paradox. It's going to be tough. I think it's going to be a little challenging. And I think that's why the financial system is happening the way it is too, that even they're kind of preparing. And in fact, that if this all does come out, well, that's a game changer. Every industry has to change it with that information and the fact that this technology is out there. And what do we do now with that? So I feel like, who knows? But I think that's why it's unstable too in a lot of ways. It can't be coincidence that's happening at the same time.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the old systems, I feel, need to collapse for the new ones to come about, right? Some of these systems might be a gradual, easy shift into another one, but institutions, structures that we've created, unless they fall, we're just going to keep going with the status quo. And we're in I guess, like, for a good way to explain it, we're in the great falling right now. Well, a lot of the systems that aren't serving humanity are crumbling away. But since we've been relying on it for hundreds, if not thousands of years, many people are so attached to this whole system that everything that we've identified with is a part of it. Including our jobs, including our bank accounts, all those things are tied to our stocks and our investments, right? So for it to just vanish, tell somebody that's been day trading stocks for the last 10 years that the system's going to collapse and your stocks may not mean anything within 5 to 10 years from now, because we're going to realize we don't even need money on this level, and we're going to go to a world where we can create, because they have the technology to even manifest things, like Star Trek, the materialization technology that exists, right? So many of these things are going to create that we have unlimited resources, but we live in a world where the whole system is created on lack of resources, right?
And then people are in control. That's what they want to portray, is that there's this big lack of resources, and they're going to grasp at anything to make sure that they maintain that control, before any of these institutions fall. But beyond the people that are in control, like you said, this is people's identity. This is who they are. This is my job, is like who I am, and you take that away from people. It's going to be a lot of reluctance from just everyday people, not just the people in control.
And COVID didn't completely shift and wake everybody up, but it did awake a lot of people up. Who am I if I'm not my job? Because a lot of us were put down on the same pedestal, we're knocked off the pedestal. We're on the same footing, you know? Like there were people at food banks that were lawyers, you know, with people that you would never be in. And it's like, and people couldn't work. All the things they identified with,
Yeah.
they had to reflect on it, right? And so I feel everything that happens, whether it's nefarious or not, ends up resulting in what we need on this planet. And it's because we're in this upturn in consciousness. You know, the Yuga cycles say the cycles of time shows us on this upturn from the Kali Yuga to the next age. And at the end of every age and the beginning of the next one is the 200-year transitionary phase. And during those 200 years is when old systems crumble, the new ones come out. It's like clockwork, right? So it's like, even informing this stuff. What's that?
It's in the stars. It's in the stars. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It's all perspective. Like when things shift and change, if you're so attached to this old system, that's when you could basically go out kicking and screaming and be kind of having a huge existential crisis that could result in all types of traumas to your own consciousness and physical body. Yeah. But if you're aware that what's occurring on the planet and the reasons why, I feel will be smoother sailing.
That's really why I'm so glad you've been around as long as you have, and I've had at least 20 years to kind of get soften the cushion and the blow. Like for some people, it's going to be like, holy crap, what's going on?
Yeah, seriously.
I think that's important that you're doing what you're doing, and that we're just spreading the message more, and hopefully just saying there's nothing to be really afraid of other than yourself and what you're capable of, and your own development. But it's going to be hard for those in the material world, I think, for sure. But I was going to say, do you want to, I know we're probably running short on time. Do you want to do the spoken word to us?
Yeah. All right, let's see what I'm going to do. Have you guys ever heard my spoken?
Yeah,
I have actually.
All right, because I want to do something different than you haven't heard. Let's see.
That'd be cool.
All right, let's see. I'm going to pull up here. Something in alignment with these topics.
Yeah.
All right, I'll do this one, which is called duality, which I'm going to read, and then I'll do one that I'll just do from top of my head here. Well, that I've written, but I remember.
Awesome.
Here we go. Duality. It's okay if sometimes you see darkness. Just remember it teaches us what light is and how much we miss it. When the absence of presence, eternal resting place for all aquatic bodies. I am every and nobody. I know everything and nothing at all. I am hate and love, fear and trust, pain and bliss, love and lust, sex and a kiss. I am seen, what will always be, and what will never become. The slumber of delirium. I am the illusion of reality that we think we are in. I am the confusion of duality of war where no one truly wins. I am the pollution of intellect and youth where all we believe we do is a sin. I am the fusion of like-minded souls who together will transcend. I am spirituality and organized religion. I am the perception of consciousness manifesting to this dimension. I am the lesson, transcend fear and aggression, achieve ascension. I am the new world order. I am the world full of borders, testing my commitment to the recycled universe. I am loyal and I have betrayed. Lied, killed, pillaged, loved, and tortured, hated, lusted, trusted, incarnated, and nurtured. All experiences in this universe. You and I, we are all of this. I am the perfect circle, split by the white light and twisted to form the infinite. You see, I am all that is. I am all that is. All right, that was duality. I'll do one more, yeah?
That was awesome, yes. Oh, that was amazing. Yeah.
All right. So this one's called Atlantis. So are we one yet? Going back to source. No remorse when reinforce the course that we all endorse. Unconditional love. The highest vibration, a gift from above. Desolation of separation. We must be the ones to say this is enough. You see, the third dimension, it was meant to be tough. There is no captivity, so unlock the cuffs. Move away from hate and lust. Our thought shifts the earth's crust into a straight axis. Just like in Atlantis. Stop causing damage and learn to manage. Self-realization. When people start to vanish and we change our intentions and we join the like-minded souls in the fifth dimension. This is the beginning of our oversoul mission. What is it that you envision for the future incarnations? The Christ consciousness has arisen. Tear the perception of being in this prison, this industrial opposites, duality, where we get lost and forget how to achieve liberation. The curiosity won't last for long at all. As we move to the aquatic age, break free from the third dimensional cage of limitations, Freemasons being misplaced in this illusionary reality. Governing authorities, there will be no more war. Co-creator, love ambassador, open the doors. Life isn't supposed to be a chore. No getting on your knees, worshiping entities from the floor. The message is simple, man. We don't need to know anymore. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the ones. And it's time for humanity to wake up.
That's awesome. That's the best thing. Way to end this. Oh man.
Thanks, Ed.
Love it. God.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so glad you've been doing that. Yeah, Dan, do you want to any final things to say or?
Oh yeah, no. So yeah, thank you again for sharing all that, and love your perspective on all of these topics. So you've got coming up the cruise you spoke about at the end of the next year. You've got the reptilian deep dive in 5 months or so that you were talking about. Are there any other big things on the horizon for you that you want to put out there?
Yeah, we have 2 to 3 events a month, and actually, I'm not sure if this is going to go out before January 1st, but on January 1st, and if it's after that, this is going to air afterwards. You can check it out on YouTube. On New Year's Day, we have How to Prepare for ET Contact. It's a 4.5-hour event on our YouTube, right? And it's just like how to prepare straight up. And then we're doing the Ultimate Star Beings Conference, which is 4 days, 10 hours out a day, 33 speakers, 6 MCs, and it's 100% free for this one. So that's January 12th to the 15th. On January 11th, we're doing a panel day, Galactic Origins panel, Experiencer panel, Ascension panel, and then we go into 4 days, of this conference with all these speakers. And the reason why we're doing it for free, last year was a paid event, because every year I like to do a theme for the year, and this is like a Galactic Origins year for us, a Portal to Ascension. And it's really important. Some of the events, like the events that are they're all important, but that are so inherently needed for humanity, we don't charge for it, right? Like I did the Truth About Cancer 2-day event on exposing the truth of cancer, free, right? And then this one is important because if you've noticed, with the disclosure information, the amount of awareness that they're trying to make us realize, it's not about who's driving these vehicles, it's about the fact that we're lied to because their egos are hurt, right? It's not about are these little green men? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is about who these beings are, right? So the Ultimate Star Beings Conference is literally 4 days, 33 speakers of us taking it to the next question of why are these beings visiting us? What are the messages they have for us and all that? So portal2ascension.org, besides that, we have lots of other events, but portal2ascension.org, go to upcoming events and you can find it there and sign up for any of those.
Awesome. Great. Excellent. Definitely check that out. Okay. All right. Well, thanks again, Neil. Really appreciate this. I love the spoken word at the end. That was beautiful. Yeah, so good.
Thank you.
Yeah, always a pleasure talking with you. I mean, all the content you come up with, all the discussion is always on point and has such meaning behind it. And we can tell the passion that you have and of course continue to share. So thanks so much. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Yeah, I had a lot of fun having this conversation with you guys.
Yeah. All right, everyone, please check out portal2ascension.org and join Neil on his mission, which is an amazing mission that is. So take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.